Yo, greetings. Welcome to Dorsey's Resource. What's up, everybody? I'm going live. Trying to get used to this. I'm doing a test through the StreamYard software. By the way, so we'll see how this is going so far. Um, this video is going to be about why I left the Democratic Party. I'm doing a test. Not sure this is my first time using StreamYard software. If this is going to upload to my YouTube channel, I'm not sure in particular. I'm trying to run a test, by the way. Um, Interesting. Like, see, testing out. See here. Okay, running a test. Okay, this video might get deleted. Running a test so far. I see somebody jumped in the chat. Okay. Now I see. I'm still learning this software. Just thought I'd try it out. I guess this is the free version so far. They don't allow you. I was trying to do the avatar thing because I didn't intend for there to be a lot of lighting. This is gonna be like a podcast, but just so you guys know, this will be a precursor to a video I planned on doing. Planned on uploading this to my main channel at Dorsey's Resource. I do have a second backup channel, by the way, which is linked to this channel. As usual, before we get started, I like to give a disclaimer. This video is going to be for educational, informational, and entertainment purposes only. Please understand everyone's individual circumstance or situation might be different. It's up to every individual competent person to please do his or her own homework and research regarding the matter being discussed. This information is not to be construed as legal advice. In the event you feel you need to seek a competent professional, it is encouraged that you do so at one's own leisure. Dorsey's Resource Channel is not liable or responsible for any misuse of this information. Please understand these are my opinions on the topic. All rights are reserved. Now let's get into the topic here. Just to give you guys a heads up, I'm using the StreamYard software. This is something I'm not used to. I was running a test. By the way, I guess this is the free version, so I was having trouble trying to upload the avatar. I had a picture because I didn't intend for there necessarily to be a lot of lighting or whatever. I was going to come before you guys earlier, but I want to let you all know that I'm still here because I did discuss previously that the next video that I want to talk about was involving politics, and this is also related to maybe social justice issues with a lot of the different things going on. But I will let you all know I don't have a lot of my or any of my notes here with me, so I'm going to have to freestyle this off the top of the head pretty much. I'm gonna have to go with the flow. I Big shout out to you all my subscribers, everyone out there who stays subscribed to me. New subscribers, appreciate you all for joining. Don't forget, if you haven't, to hit the notification bell in the bottom right hand corner of the video. YouTube should notify you, and I say keyword should. By the way, with all the censorship, of course, going on, I was going to discuss. And this video is going to deal pertain with politics. This is going to be like a podcast, but however, I wasn't able to upload my avatar picture, which is fine. I'm showing my real face, but I don't have, I have some lighting in here, but I'm intentionally, want to have like the kind of the podcast feel, so I could kind of get some of my thoughts out. I don't have my notes in front of me. I'm not on my desktop, but I had a lot of notes compiled. And I was going to basically discuss in the topic of this video why I left the Democratic Party, why I left the left. And I'm going to explain too why I swing more to the right. Because someone had brought up in a couple of previous video I had done, they had asked me about the Breonna Taylor situation. I hear there's always like a new unjust or bad situation that's on the news lately. I've been hearing about this guy named Jonathan Price down in Texas. That appears to be a really sad, unfortunate incident. What happened? Just a little bit of details that I know. I'm not an expert in and speaking about these things. But I'm gonna mention overall, I discussed in a previous video that I done. I touched on this somewhat. Why I swing more to the right versus the left in terms of my political leanings. I do have a lot. I mentioned a lot of my family members. I would even say close family appears to be very liberal, democratic, progressive. I didn't understand what liberalism was some years ago, but now I have a better understanding of the ideology, and I just plan on, expressing my thoughts. And like I said, to reiterate, I don't have my notes in front of me, so this is a bit of kind of a freestyle. But one of the reasons I prefer the Republican, the Conservative Party, is because I feel like their value system, it aligns more so with my beliefs. I was brought up in the church, just to let you guys know, give you all a little background. Some people who do know me personally already know this. I was raised in a Christian church, more specifically the Pentecostal Church of God in Christ denomination. Now I will say I no longer attend church. I don't have like a particular church home. I haven't gone consistently in a number of years, by the way, but I maintain my, in terms of my spirituality. I I woke up many years ago, the same year that I woke up to the redemption education. I don't refer to that term, that label they try to come up with, associate where they say this sovereign citizen type stuff, that BS terminology or whatever. And there's a lot of agendas being pushed out here, by the way, to control the narrative. When you understand who controls the media, by the way, let's keep it real. At the end of the day, what are these major corporations? There are people behind the scenes that own and control them. There's like sub-level corporations, divisions that are controlled by corporations higher up. And let's keep it real. They have an agenda, by the way. Oh, on a side note, I see a few of you all, looks like in the chat section, is showing me I'm getting used, still new to the StreamYard software, saying, see CJ in the chat, appreciate you. Thank you for joining. LA to Michigan says peace. Sewer Carter says, wave symbol. Appreciate you guys. Big shout out to you on a side note, by the way. See, we don't have a lot of people in here. Not sure how many we're going to get. I'm thinking maybe I should have just made this into a regular video. But like I said, I had intended for this to be like a podcast. However, I didn't have my notes with me, but I'm going to try to freestyle off the top of the head. Well, I'll start off with this conversation I had with this subscriber recently. I won't say her name or the account that she's up under, but we talk every now and then, by the way. And she asked me about, did I support reparations? And I want to say, in case you guys are unaware, I have over 6,000 subscribers. It shows where YouTube allows you, where if you want to make it visible, if in case you all may be unaware, that allows you to display that. And I have like just over 60, I think around just over 6,500 or something like that, to be more specific. But now it just estimates, gives you like an estimated number. And I've gotten a number of inquiries from people, different emails from different things. I don't really have just kind of a one-sided topic that I talk about overall for this channel. Several things I've talked about, of course, dinar, foreign currency. So this topic is generally going to kind of be outside the norm. So I wanted to let you all know I have like a mixture of a lot of different subscribers, by the way, from different walks of life that I met. Personally, I have a subscriber that is a Trump supporter that I spoke to, and I didn't have no problem expressing my own belief. And this is why I'm doing this video, since a lot of this stuff is being brought up nowadays. It's politicized in the age of social media. People want to know, sometimes, what are your political leanings, or they may ask, hey, Dorsey, where do you stand on this topic or this particular area? And I felt maybe I should go into the history, a little bit of my background. Generally, the reason why, in case some of you are unaware, politicians do that, of course, is to present, when people, the public wants to know, when people are running for public office, for example, and they've never heard of this person before. They want to know, is this somebody they can trust, or they want to know what is their background. It helps appeal sometimes to the message that they're presenting. And from a public relations perspective, I took marketing, management in college. I majored in, and I had to take small business management, and I had to take marketing. So I understand a little bit. By no means will I say I'm an expert in this regard. I'm still learning and how these things apply to social media and branding. But to keep it real, at the end of the day, um, I've studied information on secret societies. I don't use the word conspiracy theory. That's like another topic that I've touched on. But nowadays, I see some things that are very concerning, and I want to address why I don't subscribe to the Democratic Party, why I left the left many years ago. In case you all are not aware, I'm not a registered voter. I have not been since 2004. I don't have any plans on participating in this upcoming election, but I still will give my way in, which I feel I have a right to do as a American. I would say it's a difference contractually between when you call yourself a U.S. corporate citizen under the 14th Amendment. There's legally, these are contracts, and I'm not trying to sound like all like out of sight, out of mind for you guys, but I think some of you already know what I'm referring to. By the way, so certain contracts I don't enter into. By the way, I don't volunteer to participate, and there's a lot of contracts people may be unaware are voluntary. A lot of people don't understand you're induced. But I want to try to stay on topic here. One of the reasons I subscribe more so to the right, the conservative party, is because I feel like they uphold, I'm for God, family, and the Constitution. At the end of the day, I think the Democratic Party is no longer the same like it used to be. It's been weaponized, and I know there's some out there. Some people will say, "Well, hey, Dorsey, both parties are controlled by two heads of the same snake." By the way, and I do get that. For example, some people say, Trump is part of the establishment, which I've heard that before. I do disagree with that, but that statement, for the reason being that I say, why would the media be so ganged up against him if he was establishment? Because somebody that's establishment, they're going to support, they're going to back no matter what, even if they're on the opposite side of the spectrum. Like I've seen with how is it, previous President Bush seems like he now gets along with Obama. He was a Republican, Obama was a Democrat, but they all hate Trump. See, just obvious things like that, it doesn't make sense. Trump declassified the Kennedy files, for example. He's done things that seem like to go against the club. If you're a club member, or you're part of the secret society, or you're a Mason, you're not going to jeopardize these things. You're not going to jeopardize your fellow secret society brothers, or your fellow craft sisters, or whatever you decide to call it. So that's why I think I've defeated that. I've debunked that argument that Trump is establishment. By the way, it's just still my opinion at the end of the day, but I think that will resonate. You guys understand where I'm coming from. But the Democratic Party appears to engage in very dirty tactics. And I know that some may say the same thing about the Republican Party, but lately I think it's been weaponized with the way they're labeling all of law enforcement. They have a plan where they want to defund the police. I feel like the Democratic Party, in my opinion, wants to get rid of the family structure. When I look at the organizations they support, now there is flaws on both sides. I've never said that white supremacy or whatever doesn't exist, but they notice they always push that talking point when they can't control the narrative. By the way, because of what happened in Michigan or whatever, I don't know if I'll really touch on that. I have to have my notes prepared to go address or delve into that. But that appears to be, suspect as well. I noticed right after the Michigan Supreme Court had ruled that Gretchen Whitmer's executive orders were very aggressive. I don't remember the exact verbiage or terminology, but it was basically null and void. And then it was this facade that she had just renewed the orders for those that live in the state, because I'm in this state of Michigan, by the way, in case you guys don't know. And just my take, it seems like there appears to be some type of retaliation, by the way, because it's actually about the militia is actually in the Constitution. By the way, it talks about that, and I read the article on a local Channel 4's website when a relative had texted me, sent the story to me. By the way, um, I didn't really think took too much of it, and I was on my computer, so I didn't respond to the text right away. So I want to read the article, see what it's about, and see. I'm not one of these people that either to just talk off the top of the head. I do my research. I just the way I speak on topics, I need to have my notes with me, which I don't. So I'm kind of going off the top of the head, but just speaking of, well, this is tied in why I left the Democratic Party, why I don't subscribe to, is what the topic of this video is about, by the way. Uh, and part of the reason is I don't trust them, by the way. I've seen them trying to have do this camera a certain way, trying to have this where you guys, because I've got it up, trying to see where I can still pull this screen up. Okay, here. All right. Okay. Well, still getting used to this StreamYard because I meant for this to be a podcast, so I can't because this is the free version. So I don't know if on the free version if you can upload your like your avatar or whatever. I had an actual my one of my profile pictures on the side note, by the way. So I'm just trying to adjust my phone, which I'm on, by the way, and discussing this topic. But I just see a lot of I've seen from years past a lot of corruption, by the way. I had a very action packed video, so I know I'm in this video, I'm kind of all over the place, guys, so just bear with me here. Give me some feedback too, but let me know. This is I intended for it to be Q&A session. I know I put walk away in the title of the video. I did do a previous video a while ago on a side note, in case you guys are wondering. I did a walk away video a long time ago. Even though, despite me not being a registered voter, I still feel at the end of the day, Trump was the better candidate. Even in this comparison back then versus Hillary, and even now compared to Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, I look at this example that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris have been politicians. I heard Biden for like over 40 years, for quite a while. They've been lifetime politicians, where Trump, before we all know, before he ran for office, he was beloved by the media. A lot of people, rappers, shouted out his name in songs. I could name several of them. By the way, from Ludacris to Young Jeezy to Jay-Z to others out there. He was the epitome of the American dream. He was even involved in different things, philanthropy. He receiving an award many years ago from Jesse Jackson's Rainbow Push for helping a lot of minorities, black people. He's done a lot of charity work. You won't hear about a lot of these stories, of course, from the mainstream media. They want to paint him as a racist, a homophobe, a xenophobe, all of these different, talking points that you guys have heard time and time again. Now, I myself, despite me not personally being a registered voter, which I canceled in 2004, I want to let you all know I still uphold the process of voting. However, I'm in a different category. And the option that I'm up under, they have hidden strategically. This system that we operate under in this corporate America, or once again, if you call yourself a U.S. citizen, that is a contract legally. I have documentation that can support, can substantiate the points that I'm making in this video to address my grievances I have. But I feel like overall, the Democratic Party, their belief system, their values don't align with my values. I'm more pro-life, by the way. Democrats support, of course, abortion. By the way, now they've changed it where they made it where babies can be aborted even up to nine months in the womb or whatever, and even just after. I don't know if that's from if it varies based on the state, all the details. But that's one of the things I feel like they're they don't support the family structure. I know Black Lives Matter, I heard this was reported on recently, took down from their website their ideological belief system. There was a few people that I saw that reported on this, by the way, from independent media that I follow, as well as some I wouldn't consider just independent media. They have a large following. They're like on the equivalent of mainstream media, by the way, where they have significant large followings, by the way, because the difference, the mainstream media, of course, they like to control the narrative, by the way. That's why they have created this thing with called fact check, this index thing where they want to say that if there's a talking point or something they don't agree with, they want to call. They also use hate speech. They label. They like to create stereotypes and put people in labels to. And this is from a strategic, from a marketing perspective, from public relations. This is an attempt to vilify people, to make someone look as though just because they don't support a particular ideology or belief system, to make them like an outcast. So these are things that happen if you study history in countries that are ran by communists, by the way, in case you are not aware, in communist ran countries, by the way, North Korea being one of them, where if you speak against the government, you do some of the slightest things, they're whisking you, and they even will take family members to camps. They have, by the way, and you guys can look up. There's still information, even in our country, on YouTube about that. I mean, they don't shy away. They don't hide that. Infographics, that educational channel that puts things like answers questions, and puts it like in a cartoon form, in a comical sort of way, answers a lot of different questions that people have, like an encyclopedia, by the way. They're like tell me why questions, or people have these particular questions. Very educational, by the way. Check out infographics. They have some videos on North Korea and what they do. And that's just one particular country. We're not talking about China and others. And I see that can happen, can come to America. And I believe it's actually already here. These things that are coming from mainly the Democratic Party are coming from the left, by the way. For example, I was telling a friend of mine, I don't see the conservatives or the Republicans, whatever you call them, whatever label you use, by the way, I don't see them censoring freedom of speech, by the way. I don't see them kicking people off of social media, for example. I see that's coming from the left, which appears to be democratic progressive control. These big tech giants, such as Apple, Facebook, Twitter, the companies that are controlled, like, for example, we'll go with Facebook with Mark Zuckerberg. And I understand it seems like there's been a lot of pressure put on them, so I don't want to make it appear as though I'm attacking that individual in particular, but this is in terms of their politics, their policies and politics. Keep in mind, this is separate from an individual person's personality, a person's politics. So I understand this at the end of the day, that someone like myself, I can separate someone's personality from their politics. Now, I know some people can be more judgmental. If a person doesn't support a particular political belief, then they'll shun that person, ostracize that person. And I see a lot of that comes from people who are on the liberal Democratic Party, who are progressives. They have a tendency, not all, but a significant portion have done that, where they'll remove friends or family members or relatives from Facebook friends lists, or they'll act like they don't know you. You won't get invited to family get-togethers. They're very biased, or they don't want to have, when politics is brought up, they don't want to have an honest political discussion, by the way. So in terms of censorship, by the way, like the video that these doctors came out with, where they were had a press conference about pertaining to COVID. I never saw nothing like this happen before in more recent history, because generally my personal Facebook account, I never really had no problems until very recently. I just happened to post a video who was that African doctor? It was the short version where they held a press conference and they were explaining, I guess, about hydroxychloroquine and the effects of it pertaining to COVID and some other things. And Facebook removed the video immediately. Like I even had a relative that texted me. I won't say what specific relative, but she told me she had saw the post and saw how they had abruptly taken it away. And I was stunning, for the relative to even reveal that. I wouldn't have never even known had the relative not even text me, because the way technology works. I just wouldn't have simply known. I only saw the message when I logged back into Facebook and said that we removed the video. And then the reason they gave, saying it could be hurtful. And I'm like, hurtful? I'm like, how can this video be hurtful when you have people who went through a lot of hard work, education to go in that particular type of profession, which I have a lot of respect for. Our scientists, medical professionals out there, different professionals, firefighters, policemen, nurses, doctors. These are professions that are very well respected, that I commend. People put their lives on the line. And these people were having a press conference to mention, they had their credentials and everything, which can be backed up. They were in their white coats. And they were mentioning information that the mainstream media is not allowing the general public to be able to take part in, to know that this is real, because they want to control the narrative. So I saw not only Facebook removed this video, YouTube has been removing a lot of videos, and Twitter. And I think there's some other ones out there, because they also bought some of these companies. Like Facebook owns Instagram, and I think Twitter owns Periscope, or is connected to Periscope, by the way. So they're forming big monopolies, and that's why I feel these big tech companies, they need to be broken up as well. These big tech giants, they have too much of a monopoly, and that's why antitrust laws were put in place. By the way, this is some things I learned when I was in college. Well, actually kind of knew about a little bit before, but I took business. Of course, I majored in management, and this was actually discussed in my college classes. Some of them talked about one of my business teachers when I went to DeVry down in Ohio before I transferred to Detroit College of Business many years ago. My business teacher at DeVry talked about, monopolies, and said they're really acquisitions. He said what they call mergers are really takeovers, by the way, where there's one major company, like if you heard Big Bank takes Little Bank. He said it's really not a merger, it's really an acquisition. They just put it, make it appear into the general public from a public relations aspect. For example, when Daimler merged with Chrysler, that was really a takeover. Daimler is a German company that I guess bought the original American company. I don't know if it was like the majority of shares, and then they eventually decided to change the name to Fiat. And then one of their CEOs or top heads was at a Bilderberg meeting some years ago. And if you don't know Bilderberg, it's a high-level secret society. The Davos group, based out of Davos, Switzerland, is like the daylight version of the Bilderberg. And then they've had a lot of their private meetings, which are once every year, generally the beginning of June, every year, where they invite CEOs from major corporations from around the world. They invite politicians from numerous countries to discuss world policy and push their political agendas for the globalists, the ruling class elite, the criminal syndicate, different things such as climate change, controlling, of course, the tech companies, things of that sort. Just to give you guys a little idea, even mayors, local governments, so they can control these people better. They have a infrastructure, a structure to all of this, by the way they do things. And people really have to connect the dots, the pieces together when understanding these types of things. And I don't think enough of this proper information gets out to people who are on the side of the Democrats, who are on the left, because their base at the very top, the mainstream media that pushes a lot of these talking points, doesn't allow for reports for this type of information, except for the alternative media. Independent media will report on places like the Bilderberg Group, the Davos Group, or Trilateral Commission, or Council on Foreign Relations, or how these members of the ruling class elite, how they set world policies. and they'll meet with public officials, local government officials from various parts of the world, not just here in the United States, from all the way down from local mayors to major CEOs of corporations to inventors to tech companies, and they'll set and push for policies because they want to, of course, this is about control at the end of the day from many different levels of control. Just to give you guys kind of an understanding. But the topic of this video, in case you're joining me, by the way, I'm your host, John Dorsey at Dorsey's Resource. I'm testing out, was testing out this StreamYard software. This is like a podcast. This is a precursor to a video that I wanted to upload on my main channel. By the way, I don't have my notes in front of me, so I'm freestyling off the top of the head. So I'm going to try to go off of what I remember. And I was kind of all over the place earlier on, if you guys watched the beginning of this video. So please forgive me. Please understand I don't have my notes with me. And the topic I'm going over why I left the Democratic Party. I'm not a registered voter, in case you're wondering what my political views are, my political leanings. I have not been a registered voter since 2004 when I canceled it at the Department of Elections in Detroit, by the way, proudly. And I don't plan on going back. I don't plan on, in case you're wondering why I'm explaining in this video, why I do swing more to the right. I'm explaining why I will never come back to the Democratic Party. Now, this doesn't mean that certain things that happen, I want you guys to know, I don't want to sound like I'm this cold-hearted person. Like I still pay attention to what's going on. And I have relatives that send me like political messages and things like that I receive from former classmates of people from my Facebook inbox and stuff about different police shootings and things that happen in the mail. Happen in the news. Also, too, I was explaining to you all, I have a very diverse group of subscribers, by the way. Was explaining this earlier, but I don't shy away from when I met some of you all privately that I've discussed with different things when politics was brought up, and I explained where I stand. I still do support reparations, even though I feel like it wouldn't go anywhere despite the hearings last year from the ADOS movement, by the way, American Descendants of Slavery, that hashtag ADOS movement. I was a supporter of that, and I don't think, to reiterate, they said it would cost, the estimated cost was around 17 trillion. And then they're already having a hard enough time trying to pass a coronavirus stimulus. And there's a lot of beef in between the Democrats and Republicans. So, good luck with, that's something I would honestly like to see, because I do feel like African Americans, melanated people of color over here, in comparison to the Jewish community, Native Americans, and Japanese Americans with Pearl Harbor, they all receive some type of reparation, some form of it. And I think as far as what African Americans have faced, this is just my own separate opinion. I'm not trying to preach victimhood or anything of that sort. So please understand where I'm coming from, those out there. But I am explaining why I do swing more to the right than I do the left in terms of my political views. And I'm going over the reasons why. And I have a lot of notes compiled, so when I do a follow-up video and touch on this, you guys will understand my clear message that I'm sending. I will touch on BLM and Antifa. By the way, it's just like when I was kind of touching on a little bit earlier about that arrest, or those arrests that were made in Michigan in regards to that militia group or whatever. I don't have my, I would have to have a separate amount of notes. But from what I read, there was basically the feds or a few informants had infiltrated, by the way, which appeared to be a setup. And I could see from a particular news broadcast, I had an idea how that came about. There appears to be a form of retaliation. Some said that's a form of a false flag. They provocateured that. They're still members of the deep state, the Stay Behind network. Remember, the left always is going to keep pushing white supremacy, because to control the narrative better, remember the Democratic Party, they have operatives who want to overthrow the government. They have open political anarchists, political Marxists within the Democratic Party who are hardcore, who who are not shying away from where they want to defund the police. Now, you do have problems with the police, but overall, you still need your police. The problem I was explaining to a subscriber when I was discussing some of the Breonna Taylor situation, by the way, and I'm going to give some real honest answers, growing up in an African American experience, to some of my Caucasian listeners. If you're not aware, I don't make excuses no more. This is something the left likes to do in terms of victimhood. There's a lot of opportunities for black people to not have to sell drugs, by the way, that can become an entrepreneur, start businesses, because it was stated by a relative of mine many years ago who's very liberal, who's on the left, and I'll use them for example. I just won't describe who they are, but as well as other people that I know, there's foreigners that come over here, they aggregate their wealth, their resources, they pull them together, and they largely, some of them have make up a smaller demographic, less than the African American population. And I mean, they have their problems, they've had their issues, and trust me, they have. I know a historian personally, a guy, he's equivalent of a 5-star historian, and share things privately. I know multiple historians, and they've these other ethnic groups have had their issues, but the way African Americans have dealt with things have happened in the struggle throughout the years, but there's no excuses for a lot of the violence that takes place in the community. I notice a large demographic of black people, African Americans, uplift this street life, gangster life culture. They think they have a tendency to put on a pedestal. Someone, my mentor, mentioned this to me many years ago. He put it like this: that, and I see this largely within the African American community, not all, but a significant portion, especially those who have the ghetto mentality, who are uncouth, who are like what they call street, or grew up in the hood or very rough area, doesn't mean that you succumb to the circumstances of that environment or situation. By the way, this is a form of giving up when there's still opportunities to make an honest living, by the way, and not be involved in situations, because if you're involved with the black market, they call the underground economy, which is drug dealing, criminal activities. Understand, at the end of the day, you have to deal with the consequences behind that, and a lot of African Americans don't want to own up to it. You've heard the stories where the guy gets out of jail, he gets celebrated, but the African American guy that gets the college degree, which is rare, doesn't get celebrated by the family. Oftentimes, he might say he's the first one in his family to graduate with the degree. Not in all cases, but there's stories like that. And but you see the Pookie and Ray Ray, these are personality archetypes. So keep in mind, if that is somebody's actual name, please understand I'm just using that as personality archetype to describe the roughneck type archetypes, the thuggos out there. They oftentimes get rewarded. They get placed on a pedestal, and that has to stop. I think in order to see progress for the African American community in terms of the black agenda, you have to stop uplifting the thug and criminal lifestyle culture, the gangster culture. And this is why I do understand there's some people that played a role in corrupting elements of our community by bringing drugs in, the forms of the gangster rap music. However, that does not make an excuse for the race as a whole, as a collective, to continue to uplift these types of things. To how can I put it? You guys know what I mean. Which this leads to a cycle of this toxic culture, leads to a cycle of dysfunction and self-destruction. And notice the left, oftentimes when there's political elections, I've noticed this throughout the years, they align themselves with the hip-hop industry. I remember in 2004, they had these t-shirts they were selling called Vote or Die, and they aligned themselves with top hip-hop artists such as Sean Diddy Combs, rapper Nelly, as well as others. This Vote or Die campaign, and these things I'm just kind of tying in. If you connect the dots, the pieces together, I see the same pattern where, and the reason I don't go along, I prefer the Republican Party versus the Democratic Party. I feel like as a black man, as an African American, there's really no one out there
within the Democratic Party, especially, that is a voice for us. Even though we had a so-called black president and Barack Obama at one time, I'm saying our more recent history. By the way, that's a whole other topic within itself. By the way, if you read between the lines of what I'm saying, I feel like he championed the causes of other people, and even made a public statement that he was the president of everybody, that excused him from having to do anything specifically for the African American community. And I specifically asked the question. I'm not trying to hate on the man or nothing, but I question why a lot of African Americans don't hold him to the pedestal, hold him and Michelle, his wife, who oftentimes has been a political advocate, spokesperson for him. By the way, I heard she spoke on some things more recently, advocating for people to vote for Biden and Kamala, and everybody's welcome to their opinion. But why should people, if you don't share the same opinion, feel like you're shamed, or you're falsely labeled, and called, even as an African American, a white supremacist? By the way, it's such craziness. Not You're not allowed to have your own opinion, by the way. And like I said, this is, if you study history, this goes on in communist countries, by the way. And they get to the point they disappear people. They have camps already. This is a fact. I'm not making this up. You guys can fact check this, investigate this thoroughly. Don't take my word for what I'm saying. But in North Korea, China, there's other places, and even in past history, they've murdered people over their political views. And this is coming from the left. This is not coming from the right, by the way. You guys out there who may not be aware, you need to investigate this, look this up. This is coming mainly from the Democratic Party, which a lot of these tech companies there, appears to be their political beliefs. They're aligned with progressives, by the way, such as Facebook. And I am aware, like I said, I'm not trying to attack Mark Zuckerberg. I understand there's pressure as a CEO that's been put on him, by the way, by some of these lobbyist groups that are very powerful, that are backed by certain individuals. I won't say the names, but you guys can read between the lines. There's a certain individual out there whose name you probably have heard numerous occasions, that funds a lot of these different organizations and lobbyist groups, by the way, which are progressive, democratic leaning, by the way, very liberal groups. So these tech companies, which are tied in with Hollywood, also, by the way, they push these narratives and political agendas, but I think they also are out of touch and out of line with the community, the black community. They don't really go into the African American community, except, notice around when it's election time. And as I was saying earlier, they use even not just actors and people to push these agendas, but they don't really necessarily go and interview people like that live in the actual, like the homes or whatever, like in rough areas, by the way. Just to throw out, and that's the people you need to hear from, the actual citizens, by the way. Ask them, do they want to defund the police? So these are some of the reasons why I don't, my value system overall, as I've matured throughout the years, does not align with the Democratic Party, because I feel like their value system, from my observation, I'm personally for God, family, and the Constitution. Even though I still don't attend church, I'm humbled. I believe there's a creator, there's a higher power in my faith. I know that beyond a shadow of a doubt. Whether even if you get scientifically, when they've mentioned how they've discovered the God particle within the atom, the atoms contain protons, neutrons, and electrons. So even on the molecular level, there's a force, the centrifugal force of this universe. By the way, there is a higher power. By the way, and I think there's some out there. I'm not trying to get religious, but I can bring it all together from a religious, spiritual, or scientific level. I can see where they all tie in together, by the way. And I think the Democratic Party, they're more negative, and the things that they support, they want to end the family structure, by the way. Like, they support, of course, obviously know Black Lives Matter. I call BLM. They was interesting with bringing up what happened in Michigan earlier, because I don't have my notes in front of me, guys. So just understand, I'm just freestyling off the top of the head. But I find it interesting, to be fair on both sides of the spectrum. I'm not a registered voter, but from the outside looking in, from my observation, you have where they wanted Trump at the debates to disavow white supremacy, by the way, which he said before he has, and people were bringing up the Proud Boys, which I think is a separate particular group. When his relative sent me this message about what happened in Michigan, I stated to them, in my opinion, the Proud Boys are counter protesters. I haven't heard of the Proud Boys, for example, looting like Antifa, setting fire, attacking innocent people. When I see videos of the Proud Boys, I do see them, when they've got into it with Antifa, but they had one of their members was actually killed by the anti-fascists. In case you're wondering, that's Antifa's organization, and Antifa is worldwide, by the way. It's a worldwide organization. I believe, in my humble opinion, from my observation, they're funded by the same group that BLM is funded by. Many of these groups, by the way, are hardcore, and I'm not saying for the majority of people. I support, Black Lives Matter. I think should matter as a movement, but there's needs to be a distinct difference between the movement and the organization. What I'm explaining, I don't support the ideology of the organization of Black Lives Matter, which the Democratic Party supports, that wants to end the family structure. If in case you're not aware of this, I was informed recently, and I know many of you already know, they removed from their website their ideological belief system. I guess they had it on there. I actually had already downloaded a video where I saw from the Black Manosphere discussions where people talk about relationships and stuff like that, and they get political, where some people had done videos already exposing this, by the way, because there was already an attack many years ago on the Black family structure. And I feel, in my humble opinion, many years ago, I felt as a Black man, many of our, not all, but a significant portion of Black women and many of our sisters have abandoned us. I know they say the same thing about us. However, when I look at history with the civil rights movement back in the 60s and the late 60s, which was a tumultuous time period when Martin Luther King, Kennedy were assassinated, Malcolm X, who it's a known fact, J. Edgar Hoover was an open racist, did not like them, who was friends with Lyndon Baines Johnson, who, by the way, you can look up what he said. Don't take my word for it, because I did have a subscriber that asked me not too long ago, had texted me about the context of that information. You can fact check it. By the way, I encourage you to look up what he said. Don't take my word. I won't even say the quote. But Lyndon Baines Johnson, he was, you could say, in the closet racist, but he was known, he was friends with J. Edgar Hoover, by the way. So you can read between the lines when you study history. It's not important, even though I wasn't alive yet during that time period. But they also are not putting certain information in documentaries and things anymore, because they're trying to cover up the truth, and they're trying to keep people from waking up. And I see this coming from the Democratic Party. I don't see this coming from the Republican Party. They're censoring people. I heard at Berkeley University they were already burning books. They're removing pages from certain books so that people can't see what actual facts are, because they want to rewrite history to control the narrative to fit their ideology, their agenda. And this is very dangerous, because what I spoke of previously, don't take my word for what I say. Do your research, please. That's why I give a disclaimer to do your homework, do your own research. And remember, everyone's individual circumstance or situation is different, but please do your research, because historically in communist countries, and even currently today, they kill people, they torture people in North Korea. I even found out they still have camps in China where they disappear people. This goes on. And this happened historically, and this is being pushed in the form, the Democratic Party is covert with the way that they're pushing this, but these different groups, if you've heard the term, they're selling it. Yes, you do have grievances, by the way, which I was touching on earlier. You do have racist cops out there, don't get me wrong, by the way, understand, but the majority to label all police or people who work in private security as all white supremacists, or act like they're all out to get you, that is a bold-faced lie. When there's more people that die from medical malpractice, there's more people that get killed from black on black violence. Yeah, I said it, and then I spoke to a leader from the pro-black conscious community. Well, I won't call him a leader, but someone I know personally that's seen the pyramids in Egypt, and they told me personally, they studied history, that's concerning to them, that this little girl that got killed in Atlanta, caught in crossfire, it was at a particular protest, but I heard allegedly there was two gang members that were fighting and many people shot and killed in Chicago. That's just as important as someone being innocently killed by the police, like what happened with Jonathan Price. That's sad. That's messed up. So that needs to be equally taken into consideration. Not one is more important than the other, and the Democrats don't do that. They're pushing a one-sided agenda where they wanted Trump to disavow white supremacy, but they won't disavow the violence that happened with after the George Floyd um, murder. By the way, the George Floyd killing, when Derek Chauvin put his neck on George Floyd, which most law enforcement agencies, even our local police chief, James Craig, said was clearly wrong. He was one of the first police chiefs to speak out about it. But why is it all these protests in a coordinated way broke out all over the country? What made all of the rest of these police officers responsible for what Derek Chauvin did in Minnesota? And yes, you do have problems in other places, but what did Black Lives Matter solve out of that? What did Antifa? What's the solution that you all brought? Because when I speak to the women, they say, "Well, what's the solution to all of this?" So I know that we need to discuss solutions, and I don't see that coming from the left. I see more so the conservative party that actually tries to bring solutions together legislatively. Of course, a lot of things have been blocked. They did vote for police reform. By the way, after that incident happened, the Democrats blocked it because they control the House because they felt it wasn't good enough. By the way, but you bet you if the Republicans control the House, that's something that would have been a step in a positive direction. When the black Senator Tim Scott spoke, by the way, he spoke how I was pulled over by the police back in January, even prior to that. Just he explained an experience that he had. By the way, but that doesn't mean just because what's going on that you act disrespectful or not compliant or confrontational. We know those types of things are not going to go well, and this is coming from a lot of people who don't respect authority. By the way, and when a relative sent me some of these things, they wanted me to participate in these petitions, and I looked at some of the stories, and I said, I even texted them, the particular relative, back and said, no, for some of them, I'm not going to get involved with, because one of the reasons when I look at a lot of these incidences, a lot of these people were being rebellious. They weren't being compliant, which means in my eyes, they were being disrespectful. I've had people tell me when someone can clearly see if someone's mutually, meets a person for the first time, you're supposed to show common courtesy. By the way, when you engage with people, and these people, because they feel a certain type of way about law enforcement or whatever, they act in a manner that is in many cases is very confrontational. And I'm not saying that excuses with the police officer if they do something that's wrong or not justifiable, but I have to look at this from both sides of the spectrum. By the way, why a lot of these instances, murders, could have been avoided, by the way, if these individuals just complied. I'm just saying, but I didn't mean to get too far off, like in a tangent, but just bringing this all together. I'm going over, in case you guys are wondering, I'm your host, John Dorsey, at Dorsey's Resource, and I'm discussing why I left the left. I'm not a registered voter. Why I walked away a long time ago. I don't have any plans on coming back. It appears as though it's like there's a relative that's trying to convince me to come back. I pay attention to a lot of things that go on. It doesn't mean I don't have compassion. I have a lot of compassion for things that go on, but I use common sense at the same time. I'm a critical thinker. I don't excuse, I don't condone violence, and I look at a person's behavior. Like Martin Luther King said, you judge a person by the content of their character, not by the color of their skin. By the way, I look at a person's integrity they have. Is very important to me because I was raised with morals and values. And I feel like the Republican Party has more morals and values that align with my belief system, by the way. Okay, I see someone posted a message in the chat. By the way, I'm going to try to read here. It says, by Kangaroo Jack says, do you think American Eagle silver coin 1 ounce will surpass $750 an ounce And do you know any updated news on the VND? Very interesting question right now. Even though I did say this was Q&A as well, even though I didn't put it in the title of the video because I'm using the StreamYard software for the first time. This is sort of like a freestyle. I intended for this to be like a podcast, but I was unable, I guess, because this is the free version of StreamYard to upload a photo. But I'll intend to answer that question, by the way. Kangaroo Jack, that's a good question. Let me see if I can pull it back up. Okay, here we go. Do you think the American Eagle? Yes, I do feel to keep it simple. To answer your question on the side note, yes, I think that will eventually happen one day, and that's all. Pretty much leave it at that. Is it's only a matter of time. I think if you've been following, if that's something that you already know about, something that you're already aware of, and you follow precious metals, the commodities market, I think it's inevitable. There's other things I could touch on, but like I said, that's a separate topic within itself. And still answering your question, I'm not sure how long that will take. You know, I have my guesses, my estimates, but however, I think that's neither here nor there. But that will eventually happen. Your second question, the update on the VND, that's tied in with the reset. I think that's all not going to take place until the reset happens. By the way, which that's up in the air right now. That's a toss up because I gave an update. I may if I have time, if I'm able to do my video maybe later or tonight, Saturday night, then I could do a possible another video touching on the RV or the global currency reset Sunday. By the way, but I wanted to do a video, uh, pertaining to this subject that I'm talking about, why I left the Democratic Party, and why I'm not coming back, why my political leanings, why I lean more to the right. That's what I'm discussing in this video, by the way. Okay. Trying to adjust this camera. Okay. So hopefully you guys give me some feedback for those of you all who are in the chat. If you guys can hear me okay, let me know. Gonna set the phone here as I'm discussing. In case you're joining me, I'm your host John Dorsey at Dorsey's Resource. I'm discussing. This is like a walkaway video. I'm going into the details why I left the Democratic Party overall, why I don't plan on coming back, why my political ideology, why I lean more to the right versus the left. By the way, that's what I'm talking about. I don't have my notes in front of me, guys, so I do apologize for that. I had a lot of information for you all that I've been compiling on a continual basis throughout the years, by the way, from different people that I speak with, by the way. And this ties in with, feminism as well, which I think has a major stronghold within the Black community that affects relationships. By the way, one of the things I didn't touch on earlier was how the feminist movement was funded by the Rockefeller and I think the Ford Foundation as well. Don't quote me on it, but definitely remember Aaron Russo admitted to Nick Rockefeller. No, let me see. It was Nick Rockefeller, excuse me, admitted to Aaron Russo, who was a film producer who was running for governor of Nevada years ago. He did a documentary called America Freedom to Fascism and spoke about his private relationship when he was contacted by Nick Rockefeller's lawyer to meet him and shared some things with him privately before he passed away some years ago. And he stated to him openly they funded that feminist movement, which was used to destroy the Black community. And I take that personally, by the way, as a Black man of African American descent, melanated man, that they've really weaponized the Black community. I'll quote was Candace Owens mentioned, 70% of African American households are ran by single parent mothers. By the way, statistically, 70% of Black households are ran by single parent mothers, by the way. The feminist movement was, and that was even in the Hidden Colors documentary by Tariq Nasheed, was used to create a wedge division. And a lot of black women, African American women, have signed on to this. Even in our modern day society, what this is about, with even Kamala Harris running with Joe Biden, which was plans if they're there to win, she's the Trojan horse. She's who they really wanted, which I saw that coming from a mile away. It wasn't even about Biden, it was just that's the overlay for the underlay. It's a bait and switch, by the way. It's Kamala who they wanted, by the way, which I could see that coming to they wanted, of course, Hillary some years ago, not only to be the first female president, but to push in their agenda. The globalists, the criminal cabal, the criminal syndicate known as the deep state, members of the ruling class elite. So this was admitted many years ago. In case you all are unaware, there was a documentary, but this wasn't in particular in the documentary that Aaron Russo did. Alex Jones many years ago privately interviewed Aaron Russo. He had one of his reporters that used to work for InfoWars, who no longer works for him, a guy by the name of Aaron Dykes, by the way, years ago, filmed the private interview, sit-down interview with Aaron Russo, by the way. And Aaron Russo shared his thoughts. He was a guy who was a movie producer that had done the movie called Changing Lanes with Eddie Murphy years ago. I guess some other movies. I never saw that, by the way. I just heard, I guess he was like a major Hollywood producer. So just to give you a little background, he ran for governor of Nevada, but he had made a previous documentary that had caught the attention of the Rockefellers. And he stated this is how they want to recruit you if they see you as a threat, by the way. So he basically was recruited out of the blue one day. As he tells the story, Nick Rockefeller's lawyer reached out to him and asked him, called him up, well, got a hold of him one day and said, hey, would you like to meet Nick Rockefeller? And he said, hey, he says, yeah, why not, when he tells the story. So over time, they've got to become really good friends. You guys can follow up. You guys can fact check what I'm saying if Google or Yahoo hasn't censored this and has allowed the credible information to stay up. Because remember, as I said earlier, the left wants to control the narrative, by the way. This is why you see all this stuff with fact check. And they want to claim that they're what the fake news is. The fake news is really coming from, I won't say everything that they report on is fake news, but a lot of the things that are politicized that are in favor of the Democratic Party, that are very biased towards Trump, towards the Conservative Party. These are indications and things that are done in communist countries, in case you guys are aware. I touched on earlier, and it can get far worse, by the way. This is an example of how they are pushing socialism and communism, by the way. Subtly, the ruling class elite are using the Democratic Party. They're using groups like Antifa and Black Lives Matter to push their agendas, by the way, in case you're not aware. Now, I said earlier, I want you guys to understand, being an African American, I think that Black Lives should matter. I support the movement in peaceful protests that were truly peaceful before they turn violent, by the way. And that's something that I kind of touched a little bit on earlier. But there's a difference between Black Lives Matter movement versus the organization. I don't agree with the organization's ideology. Maybe some of it. I do agree there needs to be some form of police reform, which did pass. Trump has signed an executive order and would have passed, but the House, it didn't. It had to go through the House. I think it may have passed the Senate, but because the Democrats control the House of Representatives, they felt the bill wasn't strong enough. It was a major step in the right direction, and they shot it down, by the way. In case you guys are wondering, remember Trump and Pence both met with pastors after some of these things happened. They met with African-American leaders, but some people, because they get so triggered that are on the left, many haven't studied political science, so they can't stand. They have TDS, Trump derangement syndrome. They don't watch the briefings and press conferences and get the credible information, like myself and others out there who are more mentally astute, who are paying attention, who have their ears to the ground, who are wholeheartedly reporting on honest information that is fair, by the way. But you won't hear some of this from the mainstream media because they of course want to paint a one-sided narrative that just is going to make Trump look bad and make up all this other stuff, by the way. So one of the things, once again, I don't co-sign necessarily everything. Just because you support someone doesn't mean you co-sign everything that they say or do. Understand me where I'm coming from. Doesn't mean that at all. However, I can separate a person's personality from their policies, their politics. There's a difference. They call it identity politics. And one thing a lot of Democrats practice, because the Democratic Party, the Liberal Party, gets people, they manipulate people through their emotions. They get people roused up through their emotions to get emotional. And you have to be careful with that, to separate a person's policies, look at their policies versus their individual character, by the way. So I don't practice identity politics, by the way. Just something to keep in mind. But I'm going over, if you guys can get the thumbs up out there, if you do like this video or like the content that I'm pushing, the topic of this video, I greatly appreciate it. It helps me rank higher in the search results. You're welcome. If you haven't, please subscribe to Dorsey's Resource channel. There should be a bell in the lower right hand corner if you're not subscribed. If you would like to subscribe, you like the videos or the content that I put out, by the way. Also, you're welcome to leave a comment when this video is uploaded, by the way. At least if I don't comment, I can leave you a love emoji. If there's a video you would like me to see me do down the road, you're welcome to leave a suggestion or in the chat section as well. And I'm your host right now, John Dorsey. You're joining me at Dorsey's Resource. I'm trying to stay on topic. This is the first time that I'm using StreamYard software. I'm using the free version. So I was not able, I don't know with the free version, if there is a way. I was trying to upload a profile picture. So because I didn't really intend to necessarily show my face in this video. I've done video like that in the past, by the way. But I intended for this to be like a podcast. That's the reason I did this like this. I'm talking. I don't have my notes from my desktop in front of me. I have a lot of notes compiled, and I'm going over information why I left the Democratic Party a long time ago. In case you all are unaware, I've had people ask me what are my political leanings. I'm explaining why, and certain things that you won't hear about from the mainstream media. Another thing, once again, I was going over the Democrats. They don't, in my opinion, they want to get rid of the nuclear family structure. Democrats, I'm pro-life. Democrats support, of course, abortion, by the way, and I'm pro-life. I'll just leave it at that. I'm for God, family, and the Constitution. By the way, I think Democrats are not, they don't respect the rule of law as much. A lot of cases, when they have Marxist candidates or candidates that are more socialist leaning, they have a tendency to want to bend the rules, change the Constitution, the rule of law. We already have the Constitution in place. The structure of it is very solid in itself. And the founding fathers did not make a mistake with our First Amendment, freedom of speech, our Second Amendment, by the way, your right to bear arms, and shall not be infringed. It's not supposed to, by the way. What's interesting, after I believe the COVID thing hit, I heard stories, even I think it was the George Floyd protest. A lot of liberals went out and bought guns, by the way. A lot of people who are anti-Second Amendment. Just on a side note, very interesting. So they can be very hypocritical, flip-flop. You know, I'm also discussing in my community personally, I've seen political candidates will promise the black community milk and honey, peaches and cream, bubblegum and flowers, but not come through on their promise and champion the cause of another ethnic group. Now, I don't mean no disrespect, but they put foreigners first. When you have African Americans have never received reparations, such as the Jews, the Native Americans, and the Japanese Americans after Pearl Harbor, for some of the atrocities that were faced in the community, they turn around like candidates like Elizabeth Warren and champion reparations for the LGBTQ A community. Some people call it the alphabet community, the lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, intersex, asexual community. They champion causes like that and put that on a pedestal, which wants to end the nuclear family just like Black Lives Matter. Why myself, being a single 41-year-old African American man with no children, why would I want to co-sign an agenda like that? And I was raised in a Christian church, by the way. Principles, morals and values, integrity. The Pentecostal denomination of the Church of God in Christ. My great-grandfather would participate. They were part of the civil rights movement. He helped construct Mason Temple in Memphis, Tennessee. He was a building commissioner, by the way. He was appointed by Bishop Mason. Just giving you some history in my own family. So, but I have the ability to think critically for myself, by the way. And I had these relatives and people who was like trying to win me over. But I feel a certain type of way because this party doesn't address the single issues that even African American men in general, I feel like are seen as the lower class citizens, by the way, in the caste system or class system of the pecking order. For example, many years ago, affirmative action, when it was created, there was a trick behind that. That was more so for African American women. You want to know the reason why in corporate America would receive an incentive if they hire a black woman. Not only is she black, she's also a woman, so she's considered a double minority. Nowadays, you have something just like the LGBT group, which Obama did a lot for, because there's some African Americans that say, well, he couldn't do a lot for the African American community. Dorsey, the Republicans blocked him. Well, at one time, he had control of the House and Senate, so that's some BS. Another thing, he passed more executive orders than any other previous U.S. president, by the way. He went out of his way specifically to implement a law for the LGBTQ group and other groups, and just abandon the black community, by the way. This is a fact. Ask how many African Americans, what specifically did Obama do? Ask them what, and one person mentioned his health care. And I'll tell you from experience, the Affordable Care Act, I was with the company United Healthcare. And when it got to be too high and I went to go sign up for another company, they wanted me to spend $200 a month in health insurance. It was too high, like Trump said. So I agreed with him on that point in the debate. That was factual. Despite that debate that happened, that was pretty wild recently with Joe Biden, he said some factual things. Obamacare, known as the Affordable Care Act, was too expensive. I had that crap. And why did United Healthcare, as well as other health providers, pull out of it? By the way, when it was announced on the news, remember that happened? Why did they pull out? Ask that question. Go back on the news when they reported on that. The mainstream media, the liberal control media, which a lot of liberals, progressives support. These are not my words. Don't take my word for what I say, but please do your research. Why did these companies pull out? If Obamacare, he claims that was his biggest. Obama said that was the trademark of his success, or however he put it. You guys know what I mean. But what did he specifically do for the black community? You know, but he did, I found out, increased reparations for the Jewish community. Just saying. He went out of his way to pass a law. A friend of mine sent me this for the LGBTQIA community. Went out of his way. Even created a law to make their community take precedence over religious preference and skin color. I feel like our skin color, by the way, should take precedent. That's a whole nother discussion. I'm not trying to preach victimhood, so understand where I'm coming from. But just as an African American man within the Democratic Liberal Party, which is supposed to be tolerant and inclusive, preach inclusivity, is not tolerant and inclusive. They do the direct opposite. They are authoritarians, by the way. Why is that? I question that. Well, looks like we got another comment in the chat, so let me read this right here. Zelda Thomas says, Black America leftists keep giving and sharing our civil rights with strangers. Our government brings in and educate, but they won't educate black children at home. This is about the annihilation of us. Yes, I do agree to a large degree definitely what you're saying. However, I add other points at the same time. I'll read your comment again. You say Black American leftists keep giving and sharing our civil rights with strangers. Yes, they've given it to everyone else. Comes over here, and that's one of the things that I was listening to a podcast from a sister named, her channel is called Kiki Green. In case you're wondering, just so you guys know, I'm not making this up. I follow a multitude of other YouTubers and just display. This is an amazing skill set, which a lot of people, don't get credit for. By the way, it shows I'm paying attention. I have my ears to the ground. And she said that when the Democrats put the foreigners on a pedestal, this hurts the African American community. Like, they've come in, they have a lot of their liquor stores, gas stations, and they don't give back like that to the African American community. But the bad thing too, I get on my own people, they don't practice group economics as well. One of the things that Dr. Claude Anderson talked about. Black people don't practice, supporting each other, which is another thing. This is why I say I have to hold our own feet to the fire. I get on ourselves. So when I had a subscriber brought up the Breonna Taylor situation, it's a sad thing that happened, but she might still be alive if it wasn't for that guy she was living with. I don't know if that was her current boyfriend, Kenneth Walker, her significant other. But if it wasn't for him shooting at the police, and they said she wasn't asleep, she was actually up. So there's a lot of people who have misinformation about that case in particular. And I said, I don't want to sound offensive because I gave my weigh in about that. But at the same time, I was speaking with another subscriber and said I had a chance many years ago, believe it or not. I was kind of lowered into this, by the way. I won't go maybe into all the details, but I was offered to be a transporter. I don't know too much about it for this guy, one of my best friend's cousins growing up, who I'm not in touch with currently, haven't been for a while, but his older cousin wanted to be some type of drug runner. And I refused to do it, and he was livid. He was mad, like, to the point he actually tried to run me off the road at one time. And stated to me, you're trying to get out the game. And remind you have to be for that particular position that deals with drug dealing. Be honest, I gave it some thought. He said to me, low key, it'll be good money. You'll be able to take care of your mother. You'll be able to help her out, get an apartment. Because I was actually renting a house that he had owned at the time. I believe he bought it from my friend's parents after they had moved out or whatnot. And he had another home too. Said he wanted me to have that house during that time period. But I had to escape out of that situation. But it was a decision I made many years ago that I knew and understanding and being and seeing, growing up in a rough neighborhood and seeing the street life, that you have decisions to make and you have to live with the consequences of the decisions that you make. And too often times, because Black people in particular celebrate the criminal street thug life culture and have this, I'm not trying to sound like I'm trying to bash the pseudo culture itself, but there's a problem that you can't, in a way, complain about the problem and say we need to do this, that, and the other and solutions, but then you turn around and you put these people on a pedestal. That's being a hypocrite. And by the way, and her name, is new information coming out about that situation. Her name was on the warrant. From what I understand, they were looking for Jamarcus Glover, her former boyfriend. You can read the case, by the way, which I read some of, by the way, that Brandon Tatum posted on his website, Officer Tatum. By the way, I listened to the attorney for that state that was being interviewed by Fox, that people were calling a coon, Uncle Tom, and this, that, and the other. And he was simply saying how people don't have the facts about the case. And I'm not saying that justified the police officer for shooting into the wrong apartment for what they did was wrong or how they acted. They have rules that they're supposed to abide by. So yeah, you want to see transparency on both sides, checks and balances on both ends. I'm not taking no side. I'm not a registered voter, by the way, but I'm saying a lot of the the hypocritical stuff I see from the left, from the black community, and what they push on black people, I see this is black. A lot of black people, not all, but a significant portion, including legislatures, you're hypocrites. Don't preach, these things that you want. If you want to see better, you have to truly exemplify that and stop allowing placing entertainers, professionals, people on a pedestal who don't have our best interests at heart, who promote a toxic culture, this criminal drug life, or things that are not conducive for our well-being when we're already in a bad circumstance. Why would you make it worse when they bring in these hip-hop artists or interview them to promote Kamala and Biden? But the reason I swing more to the right, I'm for God, family, and the Constitution. Once again, I was raised in the church. My parents taught me morals and values. Doesn't mean one has to be perfect. I'm not on this moral high horse like I'm perfect or whatever. I still listen to rap music, R&B, gospel. I balance it out, jazz, other musics. But I think I'm mature enough. But I understand, I separate. I don't glorify shows like Empire, Power, Love and Hip Hop. They promote these shows like Bad Girls Club. Some of these reality shows, they're toxic. They lead this dysfunction, this dysfunctional behavior. It's a negative influence on the black community, consciously and subconsciously. By the way, you cannot say you want to see the community do better and you promote that, and you put people on a pedestal that are involved in these activities. Innocent people get killed from drug dealers. Did you know they don't talk about the car that was rented in Breonna Taylor's name, that this young man was murdered or was killed? They don't bring that up. They didn't bring up the fact that her live-in boyfriend, Kenneth Walker, has said it was Breonna Taylor who fired the shots at the police, which is now come on. I forgot I heard about that at first. He blamed it on her. If that's supposed to be your woman, why did you not protect her, Mr. Kenneth Walker? You always, at the end of the day, with the left, they want to play the victim. And they promote this criminal thug lifestyle culture. And like I said, I want to reiterate, I'm not trying to act like I'm on a moral high horse. I used to be part of a rap group years ago. But what I see, you can't associate the two and make this a political movement as well. That's being a hypocrite. A separate distinction needs to be drawn between ethics, integrity, and having morals and values, by the way. And from what I see from the Republican, the Conservative Party, they have their flaws. Yes, they're not perfect. But overall, are they trying to get rid of the family structure? No. They adamantly disavow these very violent protests where businesses were looted, burned down, people innocently being attacked in their cars, etc., being beaten, having their food, having paint thrown on them, etc. The left won't disavow that, but they want Trump to disavow white supremacy. It's very interesting. But I see more violence. For example, I didn't see the Proud Boys out there burning businesses down, looting, attacking innocent people. I didn't see that coming from the Proud Boys, for example. Just saying. So I see someone else posted another message in the chat. Mary Saunders says, I agree with you. The hip hop community is not a standard for the regular people. Yes. Thank you for confirmation, Mary. And I see that coming from the left. Every time election comes around, I mentioned this earlier back in 2004, and you can go back even prior. There's other tactics they use where they use entertainers, even in Hollywood, where I heard the actor The Rock came out recently and he lost like 20 million followers, I heard, on Twitter because he came out in support of Biden and Kamala. So I feel The Rock is sold out. Dwayne Johnson, by the way, who was beloved by a lot of people, but people know the real truth. Biden supported the 1994 crime bill. Kamala Harris, when she was a prosecutor in California, defense attorney, whatever that position was. She was responsible for a lot of African Americans being locked up, which they say some are still locked up, because you know how once if you go to prison, you can catch other additional charges as well. And then marijuana is legalized in certain parts of the country now. A certain individual pointed out some of those offenses when Kamala was in charge. So now they're trying to pretend like they're the good guys now. But the people they bailed out of prison were some of the people that were involved in these violent protests. Well, they weren't peaceful protests. Not saying that you had people who were peaceful, who were innocent, but after it took a turn for the worse. I noticed before the George Floyd, after that had taken place, the protests for the most part were peaceful. Then it turned extremely violent, like I've never seen before. Some people say they hadn't saw since the 60s, by the way. As well as it took a turn for the worse. Okay, I see someone else in the chat section. I'll read. It says, thank you for sharing. Great info. Appreciate the shift. Also, that you support family. Awesome. Saying Chicha Renee. They say the other message says, I mentioned some things and found it, wouldn't post it, laugh out loud. I appreciate you are woke and for family. Thank you for confirming, Chitra Renai. Hopefully I'm pronouncing your name correctly. Forgive me if I'm not. Appreciate the confirmation. And the way I intended this, in case you're joining me, guys, I'm your host, John Dorsey at Dorsey's Resource. This is my first time using the StreamYard software, so please bear with me. I was not able to upload the avatar. I didn't really intend to show my face in this video because I want more so make it kind of like a podcast to discuss why I lean more to the right. I meant to come before you guys earlier, and I plan on doing that maybe later today. I might push it back till Sunday. We'll see. But I don't have my notes in front of me, and I'm going to go over an inside look into why I'm not a registered voter. So follow where I'm coming from, discussing, I'm in a different category, and I'm left-handed, by the way, which one of my other relatives pointed out very recently. I have not been a registered voter since 2004, by the way, when I used to be a Democrat, by the way. Many years ago, I didn't even understand why I was a Democrat, by the way. But I'm going over the reasons why I left the Democratic Party. I walked away, why I swing more to the right and conservatism than I do, because the left, I just don't see their value system doesn't align with what I see them promoting. They want to defund the police, what they're running a lot of their campaign ads off of. They want to get rid of the nuclear family structure. They champion other causes, by the way, that don't push causes to uplift my own African American people genuinely. And I think a significant solution to that is the family structure needs to be rebuilt. I heard recently, I was informed, Black Lives Matter took down their ideological belief system from their website, which explained how they were against the nuclear family structure, by the way. So things of this sort, they don't align with my belief system. And why I think there are flaws definitely on the conservative side, don't get me wrong. But however, I see more pros than I see cons versus the Democrats, the Democratic sides. The Democrats also, as I mentioned, tied in with defunding the police. They're very deceptive. They're pushing for socialism, which leads to communism. I think authoritarianism. Another thing I see coming from the left, the Democratic Party, is I don't see this coming from the right, because these social media platforms, these tech giants such as Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, even TikTok, etc., censor conservatives, by the way. And they do this in communist countries. So just my thoughts, my reasons why. But I think, guys, I'm going to end it right here. I've been before you guys for a while. I intended this to sort of be like a test video. I don't have all my notes in front of me, so that's why I was kind of going off the top of the head. But I wanted to give you all some feedback. This is what this video was mostly about, by the way, why I walked away, and give you guys understanding. And I feel like I'm gonna speak briefly about this militia thing before I wrap up. That they arrested. It's suspicious to me because the Supreme Court in Michigan, in case you all are unaware, in other states that may be watching, a few that are watching, that the Supreme Court recently struck down or voted that Gretchen Whitmer had abused her executive orders during the COVID thing. And I noticed this comes right conveniently after that had taken place, which I don't find that to be a coincidence. I have a theory what happened when I saw a story about some of these particular militia members, with how they got themselves caught up. And they did send in informants. When a relative text me the article, I went on Channel 4's website, WDIV. I read the article, and I did see one of them had made a deal. So it appears they were infiltrated, similar to the Black Panthers. They sent the informants in, so they were set up. So they provocateered this situation. This is a form of a false flag. What it appears to be, in my humble opinion, it is politically motivated. It's a form of retaliation, by the way. And I would say my relative, they tried to compare them to Proud Boys, and I said these are separate groups. So I said, here they go again, pushing this narrative with saying it's white supremacists. They're plotting, but they're building up this thing for this coming election where they want there to be war. Because if you feed into that divide and conquer, you fall victim, you fall susceptible to their modus operandi. So just keep that in mind, by the way. In my humble opinion, you know, I see the same thing I saw years past, but the Proud Boys were more so like counter protesters. Like I said, to reiterate, Antifa, the Detroit police, I forgot, just arrested over 40 people for this. There's this local group called Detroit Will Breathe, and they want to defund Project Greenlight, which has these high definition cameras, which have helped police solve crimes when people have had relatives innocently murdered. And I see them pleading to the general public for help on the news, crying for information. They rely on these cameras. And even in an area where I work at, I noticed where they were dumping a lot of trash and even stolen cars and car parts. The cameras played a significant role, and they took them down. And even the Detroit police chief said, James Craig said, when they brought the cameras out, they helped reduce the crime by over 60%. It was a combination that included carjackings and other types of crime overall in the city, and robbings and things by over 60%. But this group they're supposed to, under the disguise of an activist group called Detroit Will Breathe, they keep showing there's this leader named Tristan Taylor or whatever, and he was arrested. And not too long ago, I found out Detroit police chief made a statement. You guys might not be aware, but in case this is factual information, I read the article, but you can spread the word to your local cities. By the way, he said the mainstream local media was not being honest, by the way, when reporting this information. This group called Detroit Will Breathe, because they keep calling them peaceful protesters. But it turned very violent one night, and he stated they tried to set up a chop zone very similar to Seattle. So this group called Detroit Will Breathe, in case you guys are not wondering, because I'm here in Detroit, by the way, they tried to set up what's called a chop zone, that stands for Capitol Hill. What do you call that place in Seattle? It was a part of, like, near their downtown area that stood for Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone. That's it, CHAZ. Some people called it CHOP. That was like another variation of CHAZ, the Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone. They tried to set something like that up here in Detroit. This so-called activist group, mighty conveniently, this comes right after the George Floyd protest. So law enforcement should know, and a friend of mine pointed this out, if they made this arrest with all these militiamen, by the way, called Wolverine Militia, whoever they were, then this lets me know they need to take these same resources. They can get rid of the crime in Detroit, Chicago, other neighboring cities, and Detroit in particular. Y'all need to make arrests and reduce the crime. That lets me know you guys can get rid of a lot of these drug dealers, these guns, illegal guns off the street, these gangs. If you guys have the ability to do that, to expend resources to take down a militia group, you guys can damn sure do the same thing when it comes to this criminal lifestyle. And that would help the black community tremendously. It would help. It could help raise people's property values if they care about their neighborhoods. You know, people cut their grass, keep their neighborhoods up. You know, and this is one thing the Democrats actually lobbied for back in the 90s. They were the ones, believe it or not, that pushed this 1994 crime bill, by the way, because it's a whole other conversation within itself. Because like I said earlier, and I'll be doing another video about this, but I'm holding the black community's feet to the fire. I don't normally have discussions and talk about these type of topics, but I have to be honest that my people, melanated people, have this affinity, this affection to celebrate shows. And I'm not trying to hate on 50 Cent show Power, but I'm just saying that they celebrate the drug dealers, this criminal thug lifestyle, and a lot of black women will pass up single guys, astute men, for drug dealers, criminals, roughnecks. These are personality archetypes, by the way. Archetypal carriers. If you study psychology, let me reiterate in case somebody does have a real name, we'll call Pookie or Ray Ray. That's like a nickname for Thuggo. It's another variation, by the way. So I don't mean no disrespect. I'm just saying, using this as an example. But my people, sadly, there's a significant portion, not all, but a significant portion that have this ghetto mentality, have a tendency to uplift these type of people and put them on a pedestal. And y'all want to see liberation overnight. In many cases, law enforcement are good men and women who are honestly regular people. Yes, there are some that do a horrible job that or don't perform as well, and they in many cases have been dealt with. You do have some bad apples, but overall, to label all police as bad, I think it's disingenuous. I think the vast majority mean well. They risk their lives. If you guys understood what law enforcement people go through, I, as a security guard many years ago, I've never worked as a police, but as a security guard and unarmed security, I dealt with more dangerous situations than as an armed guard. As an unarmed guard, I've had experience. I saved a woman's life before. By the way, I can speak on this. I was stationed at an apartment building in the borderline of Southfield, Oak Park, Michigan. By the way, and I've told this story in a previous video. By the way, and law enforcement go through different job because security guards are seen as they're a lower form of law enforcement. So I understand what they go through, and I appreciate the police. We need the police. But if you defund the police, understand you're going to make the situation worse, far worse. And this is what I was explaining to this other sister I got into a debate with. I had a decision. Breonna Taylor was, running a trap house. She was helping facilitate that situation for Jamarcus Glover and Kenneth Walker. They're the ones to blame, not the police, by the way. If you want to point the finger at somebody, it's more so Jamarcus Glover and Kenneth Walker, who shot at the police. And then he originally blamed Breonna. It was in the report, by the way. And I forgot I heard about that. He said that she shot at the police at first. He changed his story up, by the way. The protesters need to understand this if you're genuinely sincere, by the way. But the black people have a tendency to uplift this thug criminal lifestyle culture, and that needs to stop. This a lot of this hypocritical behavior, So let me see. I'm gonna read this last comment. I'm gonna probably get ready to shoot on out of here. By the way, I appreciate you all for joining me, continuing to watch, listen to this podcast. By the way, okay, Mary Saunders says, I am left-handed also, but I want good values for my family and my children. I agree. And you should want that. And a lot of other people should want that. If we as a human race, as a human family, want to move forward, I think everybody should want that, no matter who you are. Uphold integrity. People that I heard this podcast of people speaking about integrity, but I'm speaking from experience. Even though I don't attend church, it's those values that were instilled in me. That I had decisions, even when I went through my adolescent years, I call rebellion years. By the way, when I was involved in the streets, thinking I wanted to be cool and live the thug life, the street life, because I felt I was sheltered. I was raised, my mother was very hard on me, by the way. I grew up in a very overprotective household. My parents, my mother in particular, was very overprotective of me. Because people don't understand what I mean by shelter, by the way. And I see things changing. And a lot of things, when I touch on my other video, I might touch on a lot of people I see are hypocrites too. Many years ago, by the way, I supported, you know, things that were very pro-black. Even earlier on, Black Lives Matter with the Mike Brown thing. I felt, you know, at that time period, I had a white guy that contacted me and explained to me that how they were trying to turn you against, which they were trying to divide us. But I also learned some things about the organization Black Lives Matter and who they were being funded by many years ago. So I had more experience. I think there's a lot of black people who are jumping on the bandwagon because I know it feels good to protest. And it does. I mean, when it's for good causes. But one thing black people got to stop doing is uplifting thug criminal culture. I guarantee you things will get worse. If you defund the police, which the Democratic Party supports the left, you will make things worse. And it will get so bad where you'll have criminals, the Pookie and Ray Ray thuggos will be kicking doors down. They'll be raping women. They shoot the men first, and it'll turn into a Mad Max, a lawless society without no law enforcement. It'll be bad. I promise you. I grew up in the hood. I've seen the rough neighborhoods. I work and was considered a law enforcement environment as an armed guard. I'm not a security guard. It means I can't pull people over. So understand, you know, it's my job to, you know, contact the police. I observe and report. That's my job, by the way. So I understand what law enforcement, what they go through, by the way. But I guarantee you, if you defund the police, you're making the situation worse. So this group, Detroit Will Breathe, they wanted to take the cameras down, high definition cameras. I think they voted recently, city council voted 6-3. They're going to fund the cameras or keep them going. But I guarantee you, you know, violence has went up across the country too, ever since these George Floyd got killed. And that was bad. Even our police chief, many different law enforcement officers said that was wrong, you know, when they see stuff like that. So you have members of law enforcement that are on the public side when it's a legitimate situation, when there's wrong. I mean, there are anomalies and things that happen, like what happened with Jonathan Price down in Texas. He seemed like he was a good brother. He was loved by the community. He supported Black Lives Matter and Blue Lives Matter. But you will just hear one-sided perspectives, but he gave a fair, balanced perspective. You know, the type of person, and he was concerned. Now, I understand, you know, I'm not a real big guy, probably like he was, where he went to break up a domestic violence situation. When I saved a young lady's life many years ago, she was actually involved in a domestic violence situation. I probably could tell you guys that story if you guys want to know. On a side note, just in case if you are curious, I don't advise people to do that because it's dangerous. But the police officer, based on the things that happened, it was a sad situation. So you do have anomalies and variables and things that happen. But overall, if you defund the police, I believe the majority of law enforcement overall try to do what's best. And things are changing. They've had to change throughout the years, by the way, in case you guys don't know the policies, their training, the way that they do things. Tasers weren't always around, body cameras. So there's providing more accountability, checks and balances. So there's progress. The Republicans even tried to pass a reform bill, but remember the Democrats, the House blocked it not too long ago because Democrats control the House. And it was a step in the right direction once again. So the Democrats, in my opinion, they're more so your enemy. And that's why I swing more to the right. I'll be continuing to follow up to do a video. If you guys did like this video, don't forget to hit the thumbs up button. Share this video if you would like. I'm your host, John Dorsey at Dorsey's Resource. I appreciate every single one of you all for subscribing. For those who took the time to listen to this podcast, you can follow me on Facebook at Dorsey's Resource. I'm also on Twitter at Dorsey's Resource, and I'm on YouTube at Dorsey's Resource. Until next time, everyone, have a blessed and wonderful, safe night, and take care. The marathon will continue. Adios.